We've been talking a lot about the balance changes coming in the patch 1.1, also new features, especially the quality of life ones. Today we're gonna talk about actual new content for the countries, international organizations and everything else coming in 1.1. First of all, we've got a summary of what was happening between patch 1.02 and patch 1.0.10. They've been splitting their teams into a few sub-teams, where one was handling simply hotfixing, another team was handling what's called cold fixing, so more of a long-term fixes that are especially the ones that are coming 1.1. The hotfixing was the 1.0.x, and they said that there was roughly around 150-200 content fixes that they did. And then there's a separate team that is actually purely working on new content coming for free. And it will be also mentioned at the end of this dev diary that there is also a team that is already working on the promised DLC. Remember, a few of you guys purchased the premium edition with a promise of a few DLCs included in it. One of them being the Purple Phoenix, I think that was the name. So we have a reminder of a few advances that were introduced in patches 1.0x, for countries that missed that. So like you see, 2 Sicilies, there's one for the Aztecs, the Manchurians, 20% cap maintenance, Kurdistan, Sokoto, Italy, and many more that received free advances in these patches. But yeah, let's focus on patch 1.1. There was a lot of feedback about Brandenburg because it started with negative event chain that was pretty much making it a disaster campaign. They're actually making it more structured right now with 1.1, turning this event into actual disaster when you know the trigger modifiers to start it, the trigger modifiers to end it, and you also proceed towards a certain goal. So you see, to start a disaster you need to get all of these modifiers, and the disaster itself is decreasing your control, max control, current control, and your legitimacy. And to end the disaster you need to get either at 100 of progress towards Wittelsbach investment, or a -100 progress towards neglect of the Wittelsbachs. So this you will be able to achieve via various event chains within that disaster. German countries are also receiving a lot of content. The German culture group itself is receiving 2 new buildings, which are tall castles. One for the rivers, which is, you can see, giving market protection and possible nobles. The other one being the mountain tall castles, which is giving trade advantage and possible nobles. I would assume these are buildings specific to the nobility estate that they will be tending to build. There are new unique advances for the German nations. That was also one of the feedbacks, that they don't differentiate from each other much. So there's a new advance for Hesse, 2 new for Cologne, 6 new for the Palatinate, 1 new for Trier, and 2 new for the Hanseatic countries, which include Hansa, Hamburg, Lübeck, Bremen, and Rostock. They're adding 6 new chivalry order roles, so you'll be able to actually have more play around in it in Germany. I think there's actually a lot of chivalry orders already in Europe, and that was a nice feature. A bit hidden in the game, but it's good to hear there's more of them coming. And there are 2 new events for Switzerland, creating Codex Manesse work of art, as well as Trier creating the Codex Buldini Trevinensis. But yeah, you see, these are the order of chivalries that we are currently having in game already. They're also adding new unit types, mostly for specific cultures, like you see the Saxon Defensioner, Hessian Jagger, Gebirgschutten for the Bavarians, the Prussian Grenadiers, Bavarian Jaggers, Grenadiers for everyone around the world, but also Panzer Infantry for Croatia, Grenzhussar and Grenzer Infantry for the Habsburgs. Tengri is receiving 8 unique gods with pretty interesting portraits. Like, look at this one, for example. Population growth 001 is pretty low, but it's always something. One of the feedback about the achievements was that the achievement that the game currently is, most of them are too easy to get and they don't really progress towards a center goal. So they're adding hard achievements with this update, 7 of them. Saladin's Legacy to start as a U-Bit, which is pretty much an OPM, and then reclaim Egypt, Hijaz, North Yemen, South Yemen, Levant and Jazeera areas. As Kilwa have the biggest market in the world, contain all local hegemonies, I am inevitable. I love the Thanos reference. Greatness from small beginnings, so starting as a country, become an empire without the HRE path. Go step by step, which is for Prussia. I will be Wittelsbach. Starting as Brandenburg, complete the achievement with the Wittelsbach ruler on the throne, and reform major empire for taking some reform in the HRE. To be honest, I never even tried this yet. There's also a lot of fixes, and it's not like bug fixes, because this DevDar is about the content itself. So these are the content fixes that are coming. So what can be a content fix? Wrong name of the country, wrong name of the dynasty, wrong name of the location, wrong placement of the location, like Danzig was having the city on the wrong side of the river, wrong borders, wrong countries being in a specific place, or even wrong natural harbors. So you see there's reform to the Manchurian setup, where you see there are more Mongolians, there's Choros Horde, there's changes the setups to the Manchurians themselves. So they added thousands of countries, Manchuria, Mongolia and Xinjiang, a new Mongolia formable, new character trees, dynasties, changes to the cultures and harbor setup in China, as you see over here. Interestingly, I think some of them were here, right? So there's Jiangsu Confederation, there's Haishi Confederation, there's Yeren Confederation. Updates to the Mesoamerica, where food and tools were really lacking. So they're making changes to the setup, where you can have the Daras buildings, where you have the market village buildings, and production methods for the tools, so do you actually have the goods required for that in your region. A lot of changes to the situations, where you see this is purely the 100 Years War changes. I'll not go deeper into what exactly, but they're making improvements to the situations, which I think is great news, because for me at least, situations is the feature of EU5 that is important now and should be one of the most important long term, especially content wise. I see situations as a partial replacement of the mission trees to drive the content in the game. The better they are, the more of them we have, the more content and uniqueness you will feel about specific countries. So that's why there are also changes to the Red Tribal Rebellion, like for example in the first 2 ages the Chinese dynasty crisis cannot happen, just so it doesn't break the Red Tribal Rebellion situation. Hussite Wars changes, look how many of them we are receiving. Sengoku Jidai and Nambukucho. So one of the issues was which clans receive lands when the situation is happening. They changed that so the clan with the highest amount of the buildings in location is gonna receive that specific location as their own land. Changes to the Timurs, making the expansion even easier, if it wasn't broken already, where it's mostly for the AIs, because players could handle it already, but now plan invasion will be more towards whole region, not specific country, and historical AI will be prioritizing Persia as the region of desire, so we'll see more of a historical conquest of the Timurs. Western Schism additions, Council of Trent, and that's something that was already mentioned in some of the previous DevDaris. The complacency will now impact the decline of the Empire disaster, and I think the most interesting part here is that Yuan and Mamluks will start with some complacency, so that should make them weaker, hopefully, and more likely to hit that decline of the Empire disaster. The biggest change in game is definitely happening in the HRE, which is the most complex international organization, but also one of the biggest problems, as people noticed in their feedback. So this is what I'm gonna go by one. So first of all, the HRE requires ruler and heir to be of the imperial religion before they're eligible to be elected as the emperor. To avoid situations where a king is angry because you are exploiting the Timur situation to become HRE emperor, it's gonna be more tricky now, you have to be of the imperial religion. HRE AI will no longer declare no CB wars within the HRE to a bit limit the amount of the wars in the HRE. so we'll not have free tax splitting the whole HRE within the first 200 years of the game anymore. If Emperors is in an offensive war against another member of the HRE, there's gonna be reduced monthly Imperial authority. Then we've got plenty of changes to the stab cost and antagonist penalties. So for members of the HRE declaring a no civil war within the HRE has now 100% cost penalty. It was 75% before, but what does it say? The HRE AI will no longer declare no civil wars within the HRE. Isn't it about the same topic? That seems irrelevant if they don't declare. Anyway, the antagonist penalty for taking locations within the HRE by the outsiders is now 200% increased. It was 100% before. So it's not like it wasn't around before, they're just making it stronger. And for members of the HRE, taking lands within the HRE, the antagonist is 125% increased. It was 75% before. They have many more tweaks in the pipeline for 1.1, but before they get there, they want to make sure that they are properly tested. They also likely release them in the open beta in 1.1 before deciding if it goes to the actual patch 1.1. There are more banking countries added to the game. Kakuyun and Karakuyun will be possible revolters from the Satayids, so you might play as one of them, and they reorganize some areas in Southern America. For 2026, I'm gonna actually read that part. We have two main goals, that's what Pavel is saying, in the content design team. On the one hand, we'll keep improving the quality of the base game with more fixes and improvements, while keeping adding traditional free content in the base game patches. In this regard, I think the 1.1 Rosbach gives you a good idea of what you to expect from now on, and what our main field of work is. In this regard, short-term and mid-term, one of our sub-teams will keep working on fixes for the 1.1 open beta, while another sub-team has already started working on further set of tweaks for the 1.2 patch. As that's the part of this content development work that requires more time, as you may know if you follow the Team 2 Map series. On the other hand, they actually, as mentioned, already started working on that Fate of the Phoenix, so not Purple Phoenix, that's EU4 DLC. On one hand, you might be angry, oh, they didn't fix the game yet and they're working on the DLC already. But on the other hand, remember, they promised this DLC for the premium version buyers. And if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. Keep in mind that from my understanding, this is purely content for Purple Phoenix, for Byzantians, and overall, so there will be no new mechanics introduced, just content to playing as Byzantium. So probably you don't have to buy it if you're angry at the game, you want it to be fixed first. I'm having personally high hopes for 1.1, but of course I did not touch it, I don't have access to it. I will definitely play it on open beta, so make sure to subscribe to see my videos about it, because as soon as the open beta is out, I'm recording content on it. Most likely also as a first pick, but we will see. On Friday, I think there will be video about the art coming from 1.1, depending what will be there. Maybe there will be not enough content mentioned, but I would like to include it, as I'm expecting the portraits, the late game portraits, to be updated. And just one more thing before we end, I forgot about that. There was an extra thing to talk on Sunday, a very short one. Just wanted to quickly show you the rebalance changes that Johannes was mentioning there. More details about the local governors, where you see you'll be having between 1 and 4 of them, where by default you have 1. Kingdoms and empires gets +1. You need to be at least kingdom to get +1. Empire does not give additional 1. And then you have advances in Age of Discovery, and Absolute is giving you another 2. And the naval governors will be separate to the local governors. You can have between 0 and 2. If you are 50 towards naval, you can get 1 from Age of Traditions and 1 from Age of Reformation. Then they also mentioned that you'll no longer be able to release subjects in the core lands. Remember my Portugal campaign, my first step was releasing subjects in the lands with 0 control. They want to limit that meta place by banning releasing subjects in your core lands. And finally, Bailiffs have some more drawbacks, as you see they will be reducing enfranchisement in the location, besides giving power to the nobles. But yeah, this is it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm gonna see you soon. Bye.